What's up, Beast Mini Lurkers? I was supposed to have these videos about the LEICA Q out last week. I had ordered it online, and there was a shipping issue, and it didn't leave the warehouse until 2 days after it's supposed to. I got here late. So basically, the days I had slotted to create the content didn't happen. I got the camera at night of the last day I had available to make the content that I was looking for, and unfortunately, I was gonna go out and shoot photographs and stuff like that as well. And so I had a little bit of time, which was kind of, you wait and wait and wait for your camera, and then you don't get to shoot as much. So that's kind of frustrating. But um, I finally had a little bit of time to walk around out in the freezing weather of Ohio and create some photographs. And it truly is a pleasure shooting with this camera. I think the main thing, this with this camera is there's, lots of, videos and blogs and, articles out there about, this being compared with other cameras and what this camera is for and all that type of stuff. I think there's very simple things to go by when if you're interested in this camera, or if you see this camera and you're wondering why someone would want it. I think the number one priority is if you like shooting 28 millimeter. If you don't like shooting a wider angle, probably isn't for you. I think that's the very simple thing to start with. This strangely gets, compared to cameras that make no sense that it gets compared to. Because this, as a 28 millimeter, there's nothing that actually comes close to it, unless you're shooting probably within, an M and the 28, 1.4 or something like that. And then also but that's a whole different camera as well. This is autofocus and all that. And it. I think what this gets compared to is like the reverse. This probably should be compared to the M, in that in that sense, where it's like, all right, yeah, you really have to decide, do you want autofocus, or do you want interchangeable lenses and all that kind of stuff. But somehow this gets a lot of reviews and comparisons against cameras, and strangely, this gets turned away because of video. This is not a video camera. This is definitely a photographer's camera. It does shoot video, but I think that's just kind of like they put it in there. That's because it's why not, I feel like. Um, Having this compared to something for video is just silly. It's almost like a disrespectful type thing, if in a weird way. You know what I mean? It just like that makes no sense. Yeah, like the same thing with the Fuji X100 series. If there's anything about video, that's the same thing. It's in there if you feel like shooting some video. It's another selling feature, and that's basically what cameras have. Cameras that come out now. That's what it's about. Is what random little feature can be thrown in to make it marketable. For the next model, and that also goes to the reviews. That's amazing, and it's so true. Of like, this is a camera from 2015, which is already ridiculous to say, because camera companies bring out a new camera every year, sometimes twice in a year of a certain model. Um, and what's crazy is like a lot of the comparison sites actually prefer this over the X100F, which is almost like a duh situation. When you're comparing full frame to something that's not full frame, you're always going to have a more, a better looking image. It's just that is just fact. It just, there's, when you have a bigger sensor, it's just not comparable. It goes in every tier of what you're talking about. It's so funny. Like you'll see stuff about like a 1-inch sensor to a crop sensor, and it's this big ordeal that you should get the crop sensor. But for whatever reason, a lot of people want to stop at crop sensor when they're comparing that to full frame. I think money obviously is a big thing in that, and it's just like, oh, you should do this because of the price difference. I mean, you're paying for the difference, and I think that's the thing. And it's not even like, if that's what you want to do, then that's fine. I feel like that's, I shot crop sensor for like, I don't know, 90% of my photography life. So So, it's not even a knock towards crop sensors. The Fuji X100 series is a brilliant series of cameras. But it's not even comparable to this, and which is why a camera from 2015 is getting better reviews from a camera that just came out less than a year ago. So, with that being said, that's the interesting thing. I feel like that's a lot of what I see as, is the camera worth buying now? It came out in 2015. Is there going to be a Q2 or, whatever they're going to call it? I think that shouldn't be something you worry about for a couple of reasons. One, it's obviously being compared to cameras that are still coming out right now. I think why this is out, this as a photographer's camera, this is beating top of the line cameras still is because of the glass. Every camera company has a great sensor. It's not we're to that point. I mean, you can have cameras that are 100 megapixels. It can get ridiculous. Sure, it can get crazy. Then there's obviously medium format cameras coming out, and that's a whole different story as well. That's the next tier of if you're talking image quality. With this, it comes down to the glass. I think the interesting thing about the X100 series is that they're bringing out a new camera every year, but the same lens is on there, and they're not telling you that there's a better lens on the camera, which that's why to me the images look pretty much the same across the board. You'll have slight little increases of quality difference, but this is still outbeating it, and that kind of goes to show one that to me that alone is justifiable right there. If you're trying to make it I don't think this should be something you justify. I think it's something you already know that is a part of your style. It's 28 millimeter, it's full frame, it's a Leica, so it creates that type of, when you shoot a photo from this, like the colors are already pretty much ready for you. Any type of adjustments you want to make are so instant and easy. It's not like you're really trying to pull colors or anything like that. It's not harsh with reds like certain camera brands, or it's just it has this the classic Leica image, and with this being autofocus, it's a 1.7 lens. Like I said, it's full frame. The battery life is amazing. I came from the A7R2, where I would take six batteries to a wedding. This for me, walking around, having it on all day, on and off, walking around, keeping it on. I lost 1 bar of battery. I probably would have used 2 with the A7R with that. So I would have been on the 3rd battery. And that's probably what this would. I mean, I haven't done any type of scientific test, but I'd say this battery probably lasts like 3 of the A7R 2. Could be wrong, but that's kind of what I'm feeling from personal use when I'm noticing. I think the one thing that's hard, I think for people to realize, or not like a lot of people will think we're talking about like 4K and the bit rates and all this types of stuff, with a new camera that comes out, and that's not the point of this camera. Again, this it's to take photographs. It's always been meant for that, and I feel like the SL series, they take pretty good videos. So they have a camera that can do that. But this is basically what this is to me, and a lot of people feel their own way and whatever, is the like if you're, to me, I would put this camera as your everyday like photojournalist, photographing life camera. This definitely isn't a sports camera. This is a camera that if you're aware of the Leica brand, this is 100% made. Like, this makes sense. This camera 100% makes sense for the Leica brand. It represents like a certain photographer, definitely. I feel that way. I think the SL is Leica getting themselves involved with other photographers. But this is the same thing. Like this, I feel like if this technology was around 50 years ago, the pioneers of photography would be using this camera. I just 100% feel that way. This would be their daily carry. Obviously, it could have different cameras, but I feel like the legends of photography, every one of them would probably own this. Um, the manual focusing on this is ridiculously fun and easy. So you don't really have to shoot autofocus if you want to. If you prefer manual, this is amazing manual focusing. Coming from Sony and Canon, this is just, there's something about the focus ring and how it focuses. And I think that also comes down to glass. It just, the viewfinder as well. Everything just paired with this camera. You you've probably read a bunch of things and watched a bunch of things as well, and it's so hard to kind of like, oh, is it really, does it really feel like a Leica, or does it really feel like something that's like really made for the photographer? And it truly is. It's interesting um, how everything with this feels just right. The way it's built, you have, it's just designed perfectly for holding. Like I said, the manual focus, the autofocus is ridiculous. I have no issues with autofocus. It's so fast. It's fast. It's faster than you'll be for sure. You know what I mean? And you know, that's the nice thing about it. I haven't shot with A7R3, but this autofocus is better than A7R2. The macro is both the standard and macro version. To the close focus is uh, insane. It's real good. The macro mode is awesome. This does shoot to it can go beyond mechanical shutter and go into electronic shutter. Um, so it's nice. So if you're walking around, a lot of times you can shoot at 1.7 in sunny conditions. If you're not having like a bunch of cars or swinging around a bunch to get rolling shutter. But obviously, you can put ND filter if you want to stick with mechanical and bright sun. Shoot 1.7. The back is just so nice. You have the buttons you need. The screen it's a brilliant screen, and being able to touch zoom is real nice. It's a nice little feature to quickly just kind of punch in, see what see how your photos are looking, and I think that's the main thing. With this camera is like if you are kind of trying to, if you're at that point of like justifying, like, I knew I was getting this camera. It was in this entered my brain a while back, and it's always been kind of like this camera came out in 2015, but it's been in my radar for a while. But I had a few things that were kind of holding me back in a weird way. But that's where my decision in the fall came out to switch to this, and uh, I think if you shoot wide angle, even if you shoot 24, and you're wondering, because a lot, with me, I had a 24 to 70. I had the G Master lens with the A7R2, and I'd typically shot 24 because I just didn't mess around with the zooming that much. And the reason, and that's the interesting thing. That's the big argument on my end with when people compare this is, so like Sony has a 28 millimeter. It's a $400 lens. It's a very nice lens for the price, but the problem is there is a difference in image quality from a G Master 24 to 70 to that 28 millimeter. There's just something about the separation that I notice, and but I think that's what happens when you put inexpensive glass on an expensive camera. You're kind of, you're not defeating the purpose, but you're not helping the cause either, for the money that you're putting into your system. And so there is no option for the even equivalent comparison to this. They have a Zeiss Batis 25 millimeter, but that has some horrendous issues with the edges and just color rendering. So that's not even comparable to me. And besides that, they have. I think there might be a manual focus lens out there, but I don't know if it's even this wide. I know Voigtlander just came out with a 40, so it'd be interesting if they brought a wide angle. But again, that's manual focus. So to me, this, interestingly, if you were to compare this to Sony, you'd have to compare it to the 24 to 70 G Master, or probably the 16 to 35 that's out now. And just kind of like, you're shooting at 2.8 at that point, and you are dealing with a lot of glass in there. That would be the closest comparison to a Sony. And then you have this ridiculous lens on a Sony, with the big grip. You have this big situation going on. So, and then when you And that's the interesting thing. So if that's what you're wanting to do, if you're shooting wide angle and you get the 24-70 or the 16-35 and the A7R3, you're sitting well over the price of this camera. So that's the interesting thing about it. And if they brought out a 28 millimeter G Master, which I don't even see them doing, I think that's the great thing about this Leica is they understand. They understand. Leica understands the photographer. You know what I mean? They they know that 28 millimeter is going to be a proper lens for street photography, and it would make sense to me if they came out with another version that wasn't even 28 millimeter. You know, if they actually had the whole body was the same, they didn't even update anything except the lens was a fixed 35 or 50. That would make sense because there are plenty, obviously, photographers who like shooting those as focal lengths. Me personally, I haven't shot. You know, I have shot that focal range, but I'd say high 90s, high 90% of my photos in the past um, forever. I mean, I've always shot wide. You know, is it when I yeah, like I said, what I was saying when I had the 24-70, majority of those photos were shot at 24. I just didn't even mess with it. I just shot 24. Sometimes I punch in because I could. It's just one of those things. But um, this is like my camera, and I think that's. I'm hoping this video will kind of help you really just it's just such a fact situation of if you shoot 28, if you want the best image quality, edge to edge, the focus, there's no autofocus edges, the color is amazing. Even it being, it's I think that's the interest. I think that's the hard thing that doesn't make sense in at least my brain even of like, man, this camera's from 2015. But we're always like throwing new camera, new camera, new camera. But if you actually look at the new camera, new camera, new camera, majority of new features are video related. And that's the thing to think about. If you're a photographer and that's what you're worried about, there's, you're not going to be sad that you bought this camera. And a good side note, if you're really concerned about a new version, because a new version probably will come out, or like I said, maybe they just released a white version. They released a black and silver version, I think 2 months ago, and it's the same camera, just different colors. So they have belief in this camera as much as I do, and so they could release a new version of this next year. They could release a version like I was saying that's either 35 or 50, and that's just if they do bring out new 28 millimeter, I have great news for you. Is Leica the resale value of a Leica is ridiculous. These go for almost the retail price on eBay, and you can for sure pay well more than half for the updated version by selling this on eBay even after people know the new one's coming out. So you're not going to be lost out on money if a new version comes out 10 months from now. I think it's all about photographing now, and it's about making new photographs. And for me as well is, the big thing is like, photographing, with, the best camera is the one that's with you. And this is what I want with me. I mean, to me, it's the best camera. You know what I mean? It's small. I'm not worried about putting in my pocket. And insanely, this is like compared to pocketable cameras. That's another ridiculous thing. If you want something that could just shoot photos, I mean, there's so many cameras out there. That's just like I think it's irresponsible to compare this to a lot of the cameras that it's being compared to, and so if you're looking, I think this should, if you're thinking about this and a camera that's something that's pocketable, or just a second camera or whatever, this would still be the main. And then if you can't carry this in a certain spot, or if you can't, you can shoot with other things. To me, I would rather shoot with an iPhone than another pocketable, camera. That's the interesting thing with when you get that, like, it's kind of like it's that situation. If I'm in a bind, my iPhone is definitely worth using. But that's where this is. Like I was saying, it's a whole another world compared to the other cameras out there, and hopefully this will help if you're kind of like pulling your hair out, wondering if you should get it. I have zero regrets switching to this. I knew before even shooting with it. I did extensive hashtag research. I think a good way to do it, because it's really hard to find good photos online with any camera, at least for me, because I shoot a certain way, and it's hard to find similar stuff. So a good tip on trying to find photographs from a camera you like, even if it's not this, is to obviously search hashtag on Instagram. I think that's kind of the main thing. But like, if you find a good one, go to that person's profile and look at that same person's photos. If you just keep on going through the hashtag, you're going to find a lot of weird stuff on there. So I think you find specific photographers. There's a lot of photographers. Well, I shouldn't say a lot. There's a few good LEICA Q photographers out there. They also shoot with other stuff. Basically like a LEICA shooter. Where they post a lot with the Q. That was really one of those things too, where I noticed, I was like, yeah, this camera is ridiculous, and I knew I needed to pull the trigger on it. And yeah, so again, if to me, it's not a money situation. Obviously, it's an expensive camera. I mean, it is, but it's not expensive, and it's actually not expensive if for what it is. You're getting a lot. You're getting, to me, it's a great value. I mean, if you're getting a 28 millimeter lens from Leica, you're already you're at the price. If you're getting a Leica M body, you're spending more. I mean, it's really it really is a great value for what it is. It's a robust. I'd say I could see there's the argument of like weather sealing. Yeah, I mean, that would be nice. I'm not really out shooting in crazy situations. Obviously, if it's becoming a situation, you can cover the camera and that type of thing. To me, that's a whatever. To me, it'd be nice, like, oh yeah, if it's weather sealed, that'd be great, But to me, that's not a deal breaker at all. But yeah, so I wanted to just kind of have a little chat about the camera, because there's a lot out there about the Leica Q, and I kind of just wanted to put my opinion on things about how it's compared to other cameras. But the nice thing, they're still comparing it now, and it's still outperforming. So, and that's the thing. If you're thinking like long term, obviously, if this is outperforming cameras right now, if you were to buy one of those other ones that's not outperforming it, you would think it's good for another 3 whatever years. To me, this is a camera. I can probably make a YouTube video sitting right here in 5 years and still talk about how great this camera is. So that's my opinion on the Leica Q. I'll definitely be posting a bunch of videos out photographing with it and probably discussing things about it. So if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you guys soon.